Hey guys, welcome back. Can you believe this shit? I made a new video. I know, I can't believe it either. Now, I've been away far too long, so I figured I might as well get back to posting more regularly on this channel. I'd like to start posting videos once a week. It might be more like every other week. We'll see what happens, but it'll be a little bit more often than what I have been doing over about the last 6 months or so. But what I wanted to do today, because it's kind of asked a lot, not only here, but on my Instagram, people ask about my favorite makeup brushes a lot. Now, I did do a favorite makeup brush video maybe 2 years ago, but it's been a long time and I feel like I have gotten some new brushes since then. I think there's going to be a lot of overlap because I think a lot of the brushes I'm going to be talking about in this video, I did talk about in my first makeup brushes video, but I have gotten a bunch of new ones since then. And so what I did is I painted this face and I used all of my favorite makeup brushes, and I figured I would just kind of talk to you about my process, the brushes that I use in the order in which I use them, and just kind of talk you through the process. So let's not waste any time. Let's jump right in. Now, when I use a foundation brush to apply like a liquid or a cream foundation, the one that I always use is the Morphe M439. Now, this one is great because it's really dense and it's really soft. And today I use the MAC Studio Fix stick. And what I like to do with this foundation is kind of use it an area at a time. So I start at my forehead, I'll draw on a few swipes of that, and then I take the foundation brush and I don't buff it into my skin, but I more kind of take it and stipple it in the way that you would with a beauty blender. I feel like with a foundation brush and any kind of like a cream, a liquid, a stick foundation, if you're using swiping motions to blend it in, you're gonna get a lot of streaking, and nobody likes streaky foundation. It's just not a good look. But I will use a buffing motion when I apply a powder foundation with a brush. So the Bare Minerals Precision Face Brush, if you've never used that one, it's a really good brush, not only for the original powder foundation from Bare Minerals, but I also use that brush when I use the MAC Studio Fix powder foundation. It works really good for both of those, probably any powder foundation. And I didn't use that brush today, but I still wanted to mention it because it is one of my favorites. Now, once I have a liquid or a cream foundation, or in this case, a stick foundation blended out the way that I want it with a brush, then I'll go in with a beauty blender, or in this case, the AOA Paw Paw Super Soft Wonder Blender from Shop Miss A. This one is really good. It's really cheap. I'll take that and I'll apply just a little bit of the stick foundation to the blender itself and kind of press it into my nose area, because that's just my one weird area in my face where when I'm using a brush, even if I'm stippling it in, it's just not a smooth application. So using a damp beauty blender and just bounce and smooth out the foundation on my nose just to give myself a nice, soft, smooth, even coverage that the brush just isn't gonna do for me. So then for general concealing, I use this brush from the BH Cosmetics Marble Luxe brush set. This is the number 8 brush. Now, this is a fluffy eyeshadow blending brush, but I've always used it to apply concealer to areas that are not like spot concealing, but a little bit more like those weird blotchy red areas on your face, or I've got some broken capillaries on the side of my nose, just areas like that I want to conceal. I also use it to apply a lighter concealer under my eyes to kind of brighten up that area. And this brush has worked out really well for me over the past probably 2-3 years that I've had this brush set. There's a bunch that I use from this set that are staples in my daily makeup routine, but this one has always been a concealer brush for me. Now, what I do want to get, I don't know if you guys have seen this is a new brush. There's a Zoeva, it's called the 146 Concealer Perfector brush, and I want to get that one because it has a really interesting shape to the tip of it. It's supposed to mimic like a finger application. So I think that I'm gonna end up buying that one and see how it compares to this one. It's not that I need it. I have so many good brushes, but I really wanna pick that one up and try it. It's like 20 bucks. Now this brush I've actually recently started using as a spot concealer. This is the MAC 311 lip liner brush. And so I've been using that if I have a zit or something like that. This is a really good good one for like pinpoint concealing with like a cream concealer or a liquid concealer. So again, little tiny dark spots, zits on my neck. I tend to break out on my neck more than I really break out anywhere else. And this brush is really good for really applying teeny tiny little areas of concealer. And then I kind of softly blend that out with the BH brush, just along the edges, just to blend that into the rest of my skin. So the original Beauty Blender. Now I know that everybody is so annoyed that this is a $20 makeup sponge. And again, the AOA sponges are like way cheaper. I think they're like $4. I think you can get a 6-pack of them for $8 maybe. Actually, they're super fucking cheap. But the original Beauty Blender, there's just something about it. I've been using them for so many years now that I will continue to buy them. And really what I use the Beauty Blender for at this point is for baking. So I take a dry Beauty Blender, I press it into my loose powder, and I like to set my under eye concealer with it. And with any powder that's left on it, I basically just set my T-zone. So I hit my nose first and then my forehead. I hit my chin with it and just set my foundation and concealer into place. Now, I fucking love this brush. This is the #1 brush from the BH Cosmetics Marble Luxe brush set. This is an awesome setting powder brush. It's the softest brush I've ever used for setting powder. Now, the way that I apply a setting powder, the way that I apply contour, I don't actually swipe the brush back and forth on my face. I like to stipple and kind of like pounce the brush on top of my skin because I don't want to disrupt the foundation. And if you're taking a brush and you're wiping back and forth, it's going to move your foundation around. But what I've noticed with a lot of brushes that are similar, or like a big, large, fluffy powder brush, is that most of them, when you stipple them into your face, they're so like spiky or prickly on the tips of the brushes that when you're pressing them into your face, it's almost disrupting it that way too. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but this one is just so incredibly soft that I can pounce that onto my face and it feels like a fucking cloud. It's such a good brush. This brush set is so affordable, and I use, again, so many of these brushes are a staple in my daily makeup application, and this one is worth the price of admission. This one is so good. So at this point, I always feel like I need to go back in and kind of reinforce any areas that didn't quite get covered with concealer. I like to do this with a powder foundation. I'm using the Studio Fix powder. And this brush, this is the MODA Pro BMX 420. This brush is so soft. Actually, every brush from this set was very soft. And one of my clients actually gave me this brush set. I want to say there were maybe like 3, 4, 5. It was a really small brush set. I started using them and there were a couple of them that I really, really liked. But this is the one that I get the most use out of, and it's really good. If you find this set at Walmart or anywhere else, definitely pick it up. I think they're synthetic fibers, but they're actually really good. So another one of these Marble Luxe brushes, this one is the #2. I use this as my contour base. Now, I know that in previous videos, I've talked about how I contour, and I don't just go in with one contour shade. I like to build it up, and this is the brush that I use for the base. So I use the shade Bone Beige. This is by MAC. This is a really good brush for laying that down. And then to build up the contour over top of that, I start with the Morphe R4, which I'm not sure that they make this brush anymore. In fact, I think that they might have discontinued the R series, which is their rose gold brushes. I'm not sure. I'll let you know down below. But I start with the R4, I build my contour up a little bit deeper, and then I go in with the MAC 168, and that one is a little bit smaller, so I can get a little bit more kind of like pinpoint accurate with my darkest shade. So as my contour gets deeper, my brushes get smaller, if that makes sense. So then for blush, I like the Morphe M500. This is a perfect dupe for the MAC 137, and it's kind of like a loose brush that has kind of long bristles on it, but they're really, really soft, and it almost gives you like an airbrushed effect to your blush. Now, I know you guys have seen this one here before, and a lot of you probably own this brush. This is the Sigma E25, and I've always used it strictly for my nose contour. Now, this one is supposed to be like a fluffy blending brush for eyeshadow, but I feel like it's almost too stiff for that. I'll pack some shadow in around my eye, but for me, I just feel like it's a little bit too stiff and a little bit too hard to really blend things out softly and seamlessly. Now, in the past year or so, I picked up up the Morphe M173, which I think is supposed to be a concealer brush. It's really soft, but it's so dense that it's really stiff. So I can't really use it so much for concealer, but what I've started using it for is to kind of fill in the edge around my hairline. I have two of this brush, and that's all I've been using it for, but I really do like it for that. Now let's move on to these eyeballs, shall we? So the Morphe M433. If you're a fan of the MAC 217 before they changed it and made it synthetic, then you need to go buy like a shit ton of these. They're so good, they're so cheap. I think they're maybe like $6 a piece. They're great for packing in your crease, blending out your transition. A good runner-up is, again, the MODA Pro, the BMX 430 and the BMX 466. It's a crease and a shade brush. They're both synthetic. These also came with that set from BoxyCharm, but I've used these on my eyes and I actually like them just as much as the M433 if you're not like a Morphe fan and you don't want to try that one out. The Morphe M504, you guys have seen this on my channel so many times. This one is great for blending out the transition. I also use it for a highlighter. I have 7 of these. I always want to pick up more of them. I really like this brush a lot. The Morphe M330 and the M507. These are very similar brushes. They're just in different sizes. So they're basically like detailed crease brushes. The M330 is really good for pressing in color into the outer crease area, blending it out, and it's got a lot of give to it. It's really soft. It's really floppy, maybe is the right word, but you can really blend out a darker shade into your crease area really well with that one. And then I'll go in with the M507 and kind of just hit areas where I need either like a lot darker or more concentrated color in the actual crease. I'll use it for smoking out the lower lash line if I'm smoking it out pretty low, but you can still keep it tight and you can still keep quite a bit of control over it. That brush, both of those brushes are great for that. I'm also a big fan of the Morphe E36 and the M213, and I pretty much use both of these for lash line smudgers. The M213 is like a really short smudger brush, and this one is great for getting right into the lash line. So if you've got some pencil on your waterline and you have like a little bit of the chunkiness in between your lashes on that lower lash line, take this brush and really kind of like blend that into the shadow. It's really good for that. But again, they can both really be used interchangeably. It's just personal preference and your eye shape and all that. But they're both only maybe like $3 or $4 a piece. So go ahead and pick up both of them and see which one works best for you. So as far as applying shadow to the lid, I recently discovered the Morphe M167, and this one is so good. For my eyelids, it's basically like the perfect shape and the perfect size. I really like this one a lot. I picked up 2 of them. I'll probably end up picking up more. And then there's also the M421, which is a really tiny packer brush, which I think actually is marketed as a concealer brush, but I've always used it for like the areas of my lids, like on the inner corner where I need a little bit more precision when I'm packing in a color onto the lid. That's what I use that brush for, but I really like them both, and I usually end up using both of them. But when you're using a shimmery or a foiled eyeshadow like this, if you want a lot of intensity in that color, nothing is ever gonna beat your finger. Just jam your finger into that eyeshadow, swirl it around, and press it into your eyelid, and it just really intensifies and makes those colors pop on your lid. So don't forget about your finger. It works really, really well. The Morphe M431, this is another pencil brush. This is the same thing as the E36. The only difference is this one has white bristles, and I use this as an inner corner highlighter. And basically for me, I kind of use the darker bristled ones for smoking out the lower lash line, and then the ones with the white bristles for the inner corner highlight, because again, for me, I just figure dark bristles, dark shadow, light bristles, light highlight. That's just how my brain works for it. And then for my brow bone highlight, I use the MAC 249 large shader brush. I also will use this if I'm gonna kind of carve out the underneath side of my eyebrow with concealer. I'll actually use this brush for the same thing because it just holds its shape really well. It's got a very sharp edge to it, so you can really get right underneath that brow bone. But again, it's great for powder products too, so I always use this if I'm gonna highlight that brow bone. And then really quickly, brushes that I didn't use today, but I really like, and I would kind of use at this point in the process. The Morphe R45 is an eyeliner brush, but you can also use this for eyebrows. I sometimes will use it to press eyeshadow in between my lashes if I have any kind of like bare spots. And then another one is one of these little skinny art brushes that I just get at an art supply store. You never know when you're gonna need something like this, so I always have a couple of these on hand. And then this brush I've never actually used for its intended purpose. This is the Sigma F35. This is a tapered highlighter brush, but what I use it for is to sweep away all of my bake underneath my eyes, the powder that's been catching my eyeshadow fall out the entire time I've been putting it on. This is just a perfect size for getting right underneath your eyes, into that inner corner and down alongside the nose. I also will take this brush with me to work. I'll take this and a powder compact. And so if I have any kind of weird fallout or any of that shit happening throughout my workday, this is a really good size to be able to just dip into some powder, sweep it where you need it, and then you're good to go. As far as highlighting goes, I use the Morphe M510 and the M504. Now the M510 is their like basic standard highlighting brush that I use on my cheekbones, on my forehead, and it's just your basic standard highlighter brush. And then the M504 we've talked about earlier. I've talked about it several times on my channel. This one is slightly larger than your standard eyeshadow blending brush, and it's that perfect size to just kind of like pinpoint highlight where you want your highlighter to be like a little bit brighter. It's also good for highlighting the tip of your nose, your cupid's bow. This is the Morphe M221. This is a standard metal eyelash comb. If you're working with a mascara that's really clumpy, you can comb this through your lashes and get all that shit out of them. I find myself using this more on my bottom lashes. I really like this one a lot, and I think it's like $2 or $3. It's really cheap. And then the last brush that we're using today, this is from a Maybelline gel liner that I bought, but it came with a brush. And when I bought it, I wanted the gel liner, but I looked at the brush and I kind of laughed because I'm like, this isn't thin enough to make an actual line for an eyeliner, but it works great on my lips, so that's how I use it. And funny thing is, I don't actually use the eyeliner that it came with. I just use the brush on my lips, not my eyes. Anyway, so those are my current favorite brushes. This is the look I created today using them. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. I've got some new videos coming soon, and I'll see you guys on the next one.